Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson and this is Jectives News, Jectives Typography News. I have a lot of stuff to go through. I was going to stream this one yesterday. If you watched the last live stream, I said I'll see you tomorrow, and then I completely forgot that tomorrow was 4th of July. I'm American, even though I'm not in America right now, so it completely slipped my mind. But I know there are a lot of viewers that aren't from the US. I guess if you're here, go ahead and leave a comment saying where you're from. Even if you're watching this in the replay, because I don't know how to do the little pinned thing. I guess I should have thought of that before I started the stream here. But we have a ton of stuff to talk about today. I'm going to go over a bunch of new typefaces. This will be just kind of like a classic typography news. Go over a bunch of new typefaces that released in the last week or so, and then some industry news, some stuff from Monotype, some stuff from Figma, some events that happened, some events that are coming up. Let's just get into it. I'll go ahead and switch my screen. Still very awkward at doing this, but look, I've got it still set up the way we normally do. So the first thing I wanted to point out was this event coming up from Recess. I don't know that I've actually seen any of the Recess events, but I've been subscribed to the newsletter for a while, so I feel like I've seen them because I've gotten like the updates about it, but I feel like I haven't actually been able to attend one yet. It's free. You can get to it on Eventbrite. The tickets are free, July 17th. For me, it's in like the afternoon. I think if you're on Eastern time in the US, that should be like 12 o'clock in the afternoon or noon. Is it afternoon if it's actually noon? I guess not, right? But yeah, so wherever you are in the world, it's free. You can get tickets on Eventbrite. And I'll have this linked in the description later if you're watching the recap of this or the replay. But right now I don't have those in the description if you're watching this live. An event that took place recently was this one from I Love Typography. I wanted to skip to like a specific part, but let me go ahead and read the description real quick for you. So it says, this just released a few days ago, but it was actually live streamed if you look at the bottom on June 14th. So this was an event that happened. It's clearly on Zoom, and then they reposted it onto YouTube for their subscribers to look at. I'm on my Jectives, my Jectives one right now. I am subscribed to I Love Typography, but they have some interesting stuff. I think that the best reason to go, let me switch to my face. I think the best reason to go look at I Love Typography's YouTube channel or their website in general isn't necessarily to like go purchase fonts. Although you definitely could go do that. They're a foundry now, or not a foundry, they're like a publisher now. They have a marketplace. But it's more for like the industry interviews and news and things like that. They managed to pull together people like this for events. Let me go ahead and read who's here. These were the indie foundries. So they did interviews, roundtable type thing with some bigger players, and these were the indie foundries. It's from June 14th. So they had Peter van Blokland, they had Font Fabric, they had Tiro Typeworks, they had TypeType, and then it was hosted by Nadine, who is like the founder of I Love Typography. I don't know if she's I don't know if she's the founder or if I think she might have been the one that came in. I don't know. She's one of the, there's two owners, I think, of I Love Typography. Let's just go look real quick. Let me switch. I Love Typography. Let's go look and we can see. Meet the team. Nadine. I'm so slow at reading this. This is the team. You can go look it up. She's hosting the event, or the video here. I do have to point out though, not necessarily throwing any shade, I guess throwing a little bit of criticism or constructive criticism here. She interrupts way too often. Every time somebody's speaking, she's interrupting. You know, they're talking to like 6 different people, I think, on this, right? Like one, two, three, four, five different people are in this thing, and every time one of them's talking, she's interrupting. Like I don't need, personally, this is subjective. Objectively, yeah, she interrupted a bunch. Subjectively, she didn't need to be like interrupting and stuff during these conversations. What she's saying wasn't what people go to these types of videos to listen to. One thing I'm going to point out, and I was hesitant actually to like talk about this. Let me put on my headphones so I can hear this too. I think these types of events are important because you get to listen to what these designers and foundries think from their own mouths. And I think sometimes it's better than a press release because they might say things that maybe they wouldn't want the actual public to know, that they're just going to talk about amongst themselves. And I think you see one of those things here with Font Fabric. This is, oh gosh, I'm going to say his name terribly. It says Plamen Motev. I don't know how to say his name. I apologize. But this is Font Fabric speaking right now. And I think that the audio is a little quiet. So if there's like a jump, if it's quieter when he's speaking than when I'm speaking, or vice versa, I apologize. But let's listen. Any books that you would recommend? Hi, Zara. Yeah, let me know what kind of books you are interested in, and I can recommend. If you're interested in like an intro to typography book, I would definitely recommend Thinking with Type by Ellen Lupton. I have a book review coming out on that. There's already like one short video on it. If you're interested in designing type, then I think there are a bunch of different options. Designing Type by Karen Chung, I've also covered. But yeah, let me know what types of books about typography you'd be interested in or design, and then I can make some recommendations. If not now, I can definitely make, do reviews and stuff in the future. I have a stack of books sitting on the other side of this monitor right now where I'm just waiting to review them. So yeah, go ahead and anybody else can, watching the replay or whatever, can leave comments too. But let's go ahead and listen to Font Fabric, and I'll come back if you do leave a chat. Okay, so I'll just stop there. Let me take these out so I can hear myself talking. This is what I'm saying. I think that they sometimes will say things at these events that maybe they don't want everyone else to know about. That they wouldn't necessarily say to their consumers. How do I switch back to my face cam? So I know it might have been difficult to hear there, and then he also has an accent. So I'll go ahead and recap the two things that I found interesting about this comment. The different industry foundries, they were independent foundries, were asked like, what do you see the future? Like, what are you looking forward to? What do you think the problems are going to be? And the two things that he said were, there's an opportunity because like my fonts, like Monotype, their Monotype is basically, I don't think the biggest, because I think Adobe might have actually the biggest influence, but they own the most foundries, they own the most typefaces. They're the biggest selling actual typefaces, whereas Adobe is distributing theirs through Adobe Fonts. So Font Fabric works with Monotype on some AI stuff. Basically what he just said was, when my fonts raise their prices, because they have the power to do that, they're like Walmart or Amazon of fonts, right? Like it's the biggest place, people have to go there to buy it. In many situations, not all, but like you have to go to Monotype to buy them. So rather than worrying about Monotype raising their prices, when they do it, you do it. We should all be raising our prices, is what he's saying. This is like the definition of like antitrust, like everyone just agreeing to raise their prices so that everyone has to pay higher prices. Like this is what antitrust laws came into play about, was that like people in industries would just all decide, hey, we're all going to raise our prices, and then nobody can do anything about it. I don't know that Font Fabric themselves has that power, but I do think that you are getting a look at the mindset that some people in the industry have, some of these foundries have, and Font Fabric is clearly demonstrating that here. And this is of course subjective, but I objectively showed you what he just said. So I'm going to go ahead and color it from my own point of view, because I don't own a foundry. Obviously, I do think that they need to make money. I would never pirate a font. But the two things that he's saying is, hey, let's all raise our prices together so we can all make more money. That's a trust, that's illegal. Second, he's saying, I'm looking forward to the end of perpetual license. If you don't know, perpetual means like forever, basically. You buy a font, you just get to use it until you die, essentially. You get to use that font file. There are ways that people can sell a typeface and then you still need to purchase it again later. Like if you bought a typeface before like variable fonts existed, and then one day they release a variable font version of it, they can sell it to you again. Like the way like a video game, if they released a video game on PS3 and then released it on PS4, you got to buy it again. They can do that. So they can still make money each time they make a new version of that typeface if they want to. Or they can do like Helvetica, right? Helvetica New, Helvetica Now, Helvetica World. Like there's a bunch of different like ways that they can relicense the same design, kind of. So to say that he's looking forward to the end of perpetual license, I think is almost the opposite of what everyone else, every other consumer in the world wants. Of course, companies want to be able to sell you a product and you never actually own it. They want it to be like Netflix or Spotify or, any of these services, or Adobe, where like you can't just buy Adobe Photoshop anymore. You rent a license to be able to use Adobe Photoshop for a month at a time. You rent the ability to watch a movie on Netflix a month at a time. Basically, what he's wanting to do is rent you a font 1 month at a time instead of selling you the font. I don't think most people want that. Maybe I'm wrong, but with all of the studies, the surveys showing that everyone has subscription fatigue, like think about all of the different streaming services we have. Now imagine as a designer, you have a bunch of different subscriptions just for fonts. This is the opposite of what I think the industry needs. And I think Font Fabric is someone that I personally looked highly upon, like prior to this comment. And afterwards, I'm just like, I don't know, like, why would I buy fonts from someone? Like, why would I support someone now who wants to make my future as a designer worse? I wouldn't. So I don't know. You can do whatever you want and go ahead and listen to the whole interview. It's an hour long. I snipped out like a 1 minute from it. So maybe your perspective will be different. I'll have this linked in the description later, or you can just look it up. The Future of Font Industry Foundries from I Love Typography. I just point this out, the YouTube channel in general, we can go ahead and click on it. The YouTube channel in general, because they do have a lot of interviews. Well, they used to. Sometimes they go and speak with these people. It looks like they've taken down some of the lives and stuff. Go check it out, though, and you'll get a clear view of how some people think about the industry. And you also, it's not just bad stuff. It's easy to point out the bad stuff, right? Because that's the things that get us riled up. And everybody wants to share the bad stuff, their bad experiences. That you eat at a restaurant, you don't like the food, you want to tell everybody. But you also get to see which foundries and which type designers you want to support, because they want to do things that make your life better. They want to do things that are consumer friendly. They don't want to keep you locked into like renting a font license month after month after month. They don't want to do value-based like pricing where, they charge one person $100,000 for a font and another person $100. I just think it's important to know that that's going on right now, to be aware of it and support the people that you want to support based on those types of things. Next up, on a much lighter note, Mark Simonson, great designer, great follow on Blue Sky, just great. He's got a notebook on here. I'll go back real quick. And he writes little blogs about his typefaces and things like that. June 30th, so almost a week ago, 6 days ago, 5 days ago, he wrote this article about Proxima Nova turning 20. And in my brain, Proxima Nova is still like such a fresh font. I guess right now we're kind of going on, we peaked as far as like these sans serifs. Would this be geometric? Yeah, I would consider this like a geometric sans serif, right? We've peaked as far as sans serifs go. And we'll get back to it, of course, but you can see right here, here's a bunch of examples. You've probably either used or seen Proxima Nova many times in your life. You can see right here, Today Show, Amazon, Patriot Act, CBS, The Americans, Black Mirror, and tons and tons and tons of uses. I won't read this article entirely, but I found it really interesting that Proxima Nova came from Proxima Sans, which was actually released in 1994. So while right now this one's turning 20, like the basis for Proxima Nova is actually turning like 32. But Proxima Sans never really got like a lot of acclaim. It never became super popular. Fast forward, Gotham, which was apparently another thing I didn't know, was originally designed like exclusive to GQ magazine. So Gotham gets released to the general public. It gets lots of attention. Mark Simonson notes that it looks very similar to Proxima Nova. And so Proxima Sans. And so he releases Proxima Nova and it just blows up as well. So 20 years of Proxima Nova. I'm sure you've used it. I don't have a link for it here, but I know that you can get it on Adobe Fonts. You can see right here, this is the type kit that was originally type kit was like its own thing, and then Adobe bought it, turned it into Adobe Fonts. So yeah, definitely a quick read, easy to go check out, but let's get into some bigger industry news. Koto rebranded Tripadvisor, and I don't know if I should start with this one, but I'm going to. I think that this is one of the downsides of a typography-driven brand. We've looked at a few of these. What have we looked at? We've looked at like Coinbase and oh my goodness, we've looked at some of them. I can't think of all of them now, but we've looked at some of these type-driven brands. We looked at Eventbrite actually, and we were talking about Eventbrite earlier. We looked at Eventbrite because once you're inside one of these apps, you're mostly looking at typography. But like I said, having reached like peak geometric sans serif, Tripadvisor and Koto didn't get the memo. Because when you look at this, would you even know, if it didn't have the little Tripadvisor owl on there, would you even know this was Tripadvisor? And it's not that the typography is bad. It's not that these designs are bad. Oh, you can see they've updated the little owl. I didn't even look at that. Let's see what they did. They took him out of the circle and made him big. They've animated it. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it looks like they took him out of the little circle and then animated it. But like this typography, you could replace the logo with almost anything. I don't know. These brands that use like every color imaginable too. This is something that, I don't know, that I used to do when I was a student in, oh, that's Las Vegas. Oh, no, yeah, is that Las Vegas? No, that's in New York, the Naked Cowboy. This is something I used to do when I was a student. I would be indecisive about what color to use, so I would just use every color. This brand's gonna have 25 colors now, and I would show all the colorful things, and people, ooh, that's cool. Not realizing like you don't own a color in the consumer's mind anymore. Think about Coca-Cola. What color is it? It's red. Think about a Nike box. What color is it? It's orange. Think about like John Deere. What color is the tractor? It's green. What color is Tripadvisor? That's the problem with doing this for your branding. Just typography and a bunch of colors. And if you have this app on your phone, I'm sure maybe you answered whatever color the icon is on the app, but I don't have it on my phone. So when I see this branding, if I ever saw one of these signs, this would mean nothing to me. Unless I see the word Tripadvisor on there. This could be any brand imaginable. So I think that's one thing we need to think about when we're designing brands for that are, you know, mostly based on typefaces. Maybe we need to think about like, is anybody going to know what brand this is based entirely on the font? And if no, I don't know. I don't know that that's ideal. Let's move to one that's a little more distinct. This is a Cartier exhibition that was done by Pentagram. And I didn't even look to see what fonts they're actually using. I'm not sure that it necessarily matters. It's more the vibe that I'm thinking of here. But you can see here, they've got, you know, like the museum type exhibits going on, and they're using the sans serif, which is very clean, very legible. And you might be thinking, we just said not to do that. And then you come and you can see these larger prints here. Let's see if we can zoom in on this. I'm not sure if the pictures are going to resize. Yeah, the picture's kind of resized, so it's pointless. But you can see here where it says Maison Cartier, that they're using the serif typeface. It looks super clean. It's italic, and then they're combining it with that sans serif there. You can see here they've got this. What's it say? Scotch Genovese? I don't know. I don't speak French. Scotch Genovese book display italic. Yeah, but you can see the typeface here. It looks beautiful. They've got these engravings in the side of the wall and stuff. They're using these distinct italic display serif typefaces here. You've got some like hand lettering and stuff from the super old school Cartier signage. Just really cool typography, both from Pentagram designing this space and then also to look back at the old like Cartier stuff. Why is this cool? This is cool for the same reason that we talked about when we were looking at the typographics. Elizabeth Goodspeed's presentation where she was talking about references and archives and things like that. If you really wanted to go back and think about like, how could we really reach back and create something that looks like it was from 1949? We're seeing that up here. I'm assuming that's what this is from. If you wanted something from 1949 and you want it to really look and feel like it, you don't type into ChatGPT or Midjourney and say, make me a sign from 1949. They're going to do the biggest cliche you can possibly think of. Now you go back and you look at references like this that were real street signage or real handbooks or whatever. You look at what they were doing, and then you can, you know, take inspiration from that. Not just what fonts they were using, but how they were laying them out. There's no grid here. Look at this Cartier jewelers and goldsmiths. This is all centered. It's like an old, like one of those old, I can't even think of what kind of books you would call them. Like an old manuscript book that before the Swiss design movement came in, and everything was just centered, and you would have the big title, subtitle, you'd have some authors and stuff at the bottom. Here they've got the cities. This is the kind of stuff you can see when you go look at the older designs and typography and stuff like that. Like, it's not just what font was being used or what lettering was being used, but how it was being used. And I think Pentagram did a really good job with this exhibition, just staying out of the way when you need to stay out of the way. So you've got these nondescript sans serifs for the descriptions and stuff like that, just like clear, legible, clean, doesn't detract from what's going on at all, lets you focus on the information. But then for the signage and stuff like that, like the big wayfinding, like this here where it says crafting in an image, Like you've got something more distinctly Cartier that draws you into like, what is this piece? And then you can focus on the piece itself. So I do think that this is a really great example of typography, and one that is distinctly Cartier. I know that this could kind of be, if you're not familiar with Cartier, this could be any luxury brand, if we're being honest, because a lot of them do this type of stuff. But in the world of luxury, the target market for this, they would probably recognize this as being distinctly Cartier. Another interesting rebrand that we saw recently was for this. Dark Horses did a rebrand of St. Andrews Links, and I know nothing about golf. I know nothing about these golf courses, so take that with a grain of salt when I speak about this right now. I do think this is a very distinct look to it, and I like the little. Let's see if we can get this open in a background tab or something. See. When you get things like this, go look up in the address bar, and you can kind of delete some of this and get like a bigger version of it sometimes, because they're resizing them. But you can see here they've got these sort of like loops going around the font, and it turns it from a flat 2D like type treatment logo to having and now it feels 3D. It feels like the typeface has these curves to it, like it's tubes. And I really like that. I don't know why it's there though. It reminds me of like Daffy Duck with his little like priest collar. But I'm assuming it has something to do with golf, right? Because why else would that be there? And then they've done a nice job. They've pulled together 7 different courses, it looks like here. And they've done it with with the typography, with the color, with these sort of like brushed icons. I think it looks great. That's not why I'm pointing this out though. I do think it looks excellent. I think this is a great example of something that is distinctly St. Andrews, and all of the courses, you can go to any of these 7 courses and they're going to feel like the same thing. Compare that to Tripadvisor and it feels like the same thing as any other app that has come out since 2012. What I wanted to point out though here is another one of those things that maybe you shouldn't say out loud. The first line of this is on Design Week, designweek.co.uk. I'll have this linked in the description later on. Article by Claire Dowdy. The very first line, St. Andrews Links, Europe's biggest public golf complex, has rebranded to raise revenue. Like this, out of all the things, I know we all pretend like everybody wants to earn more money. No one doesn't want to earn more money. You can earn $1 million and you want to earn $1,000,001. It doesn't matter. Everybody wants more money, because if you have more money, you can do more things. You can help more people. You can do whatever you want. You can use it selfishly. You can use it philanthropically. What would that adjective even be? You can use it for like philanthropic uses. But that doesn't matter. Everybody can always use more money. All companies can benefit from more revenue. I don't have a problem with that, but they don't even pretend. And I don't think that this is a reason to rebrand. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a good reason. I mean, if you were a clothing brand and you wanted to earn more money, yeah, you could rebrand. I think making better clothes would probably be a better alternative, but I don't know. I found it an interesting article. Let me go ahead and try to summarize it. Basically, this is super old golf course. One of them, it says like 600 years old. They've got 7 golf courses. I know nothing about golf, like I said, but apparently this is, these are iconic places. They have no shortage of golfers wanting to come there. Their tee times are entirely full. There's a wait list to get in there. They never have a day where there isn't someone golfing at every minute on these courses. So in order to earn even more money, because, you know, having like a completely full roster of like people wanting to come golf there. In order to earn even more money, they've rebranded in an attempt to be able to sell at retail locations, not at the golf courses. So you can see here it says, for example, in 2027, there could be retail activations in Edinburgh and Glasgow airports to take advantage of visitors coming to St. Andrews for the Open. He also suggests shops could open in the US. Around 42 million Americans played golf in 2024. So it's like, we don't care that this has nothing to do with the golf course in the US. We're going to go put a it has nothing in the US. These are in the UK. Or Europe. We're going to go put retail locations in the US and we're going to rebrand so that we can earn more money based on that. Like, I don't have a problem with people being capitalistic and earning money and doing these things. I just think if someone came to me and they were like, "Hey, we want you to rebrand our company," I'd say, "Cool. What's the problem? Like, what's the brand not doing? Who do we need to reach that we're not reaching? Like, is the voice not right? What's going on?" And they're just like, "No, we just want to earn more money." I'd be like, "Okay, I don't know." It's just a weird thing to say out loud. Not that everybody doesn't want to earn more money, and people should and can do whatever they want to do that, but it just feels weird, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't feel weird. I was not familiar with D8. D8 is a design studio, and they created ABC D8. And this isn't someone that most of us will ever buy typefaces from. Not because they create bad typefaces, but because they create bespoke typefaces. And I just thought it was a really cool to see like their how it works page. So they've got some case studies you can go through and you can look at the typefaces that their Studio D8 has like created branding for with custom typefaces and things like that. But now they've got this ABC D8 where they're specifically creating bespoke typefaces, custom typefaces. And I think this is likely how a lot of fonts work, although I'm not sure, you know, based on the comments from Font Fabric, I think they want to create these perpetual licenses, even if they're creating a custom typeface. They don't want to just let someone buy their font. They want someone to rent their font forever. And that's the exact opposite of what you see ABC D8 doing here. They add brand value, sure. I mean, we just looked at some typefaces, some fonts and the branding that looks great. I agree that typography can and does add value to a brand, especially when it's custom. We subtract the complicated license. This is my favorite part. This is why I'm talking about this. This is what I think we need more of in the industry. We need less of this, like, let's take advantage of everyone that wants to buy a font or everyone that wants to have a custom font, and let's make it simple. That doesn't mean these typefaces are going to be cheap. There's no bespoke typeface that's going to be cheap. But let me go over the ownership and usage part here. What about the license? Put really simply, there isn't one. We create typeface and designs and working fonts specifically for your brand, so they're yours alone forever, free from recurring fees, free from fuss. And then it's basically the rest of it's just like, so can I use them for print, broadcasting, merch? Yes. What is the limits on page views? Because if you don't know, when you license a typeface, lots of times they'll say, you're going to use it for 10,000 views, 50,000 views, 100,000 views. And then they charge you based on those views, despite the fact that it costs them nothing more. They're not hosting that font for you. It costs them nothing more. They're just doing this value-based pricing. ABCD8 is not doing that. They're making a font just for you. You buy it. You can use it a billion times if you want. What about it in the app? Cool. We're not going to download it, but you can use it as much as you want. Can I share it with people outside the organization? Yeah, you own it. You can do whatever you want with it. I think we're getting the idea of it here. And then they tell you what kind of fonts they're providing, and then, you know, variable fonts and things like that. I just thought that it was such a cool and refreshing thing. And we've talked about a few other foundries that do this, where they have Simple Bits has like his super simple font license. There's some other places that do that have both affordable fonts and simple font license that just don't mess around with all this nonsense. I don't know. It's subjective, obviously, the objective part is there are places that are doing all this other nonsense, trying to squeeze every dollar out of you they can for each individual use case of a font. And then you have people that are doing the opposite, where they're like, here's a fair price. You know, like two parties agree, this is a fair price to pay for it. Do what you want with it. Like in this case, you're buying a bespoke typeface, it's yours. In another case, you're licensing it still, but it's perpetual license you can use forever. And as long as you're not selling it or changing it or something like that, like you can basically do what you want with it. Like that's what you want when you're looking for a font. Oh shoot, I should have pulled this up on YouTube, but I didn't. I think this is gonna link to his channel. Okay, I'll just I'll go ahead and give a shout out here. Till T. I'm not sure. Till T. This person, I'm not actually sure if it's a guy or not. This person left a comment that I'm gonna read right here. I'll just put my face cam on here because I don't know that we need to look at a blank white screen right now. We can look at the blank white screen. In a recent video, I was looking at a Duospaced font, and they didn't do a good job of explaining what it was, because in the description it said, unlike other monospaced fonts, you know, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember necessarily what it said. Oh, it's this one right here. OV Autograph Duospace. It was a trending font on my fonts, and he made a great observation that I didn't even consider. I'm going to go ahead and read his comment, then I'll talk about it. Till T4445 said, the font OV Autograph Duospace you found on the trending list seems like an interesting design. For one, it's a hybrid between slab and sans, reminiscent of Museo, and additionally, it's not a classical monospaced font, but a duospaced one. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently there are a number of monospaced fonts that use two or more widths for especially narrow and wide glyphs, or both. There's even a Wikipedia article about duospaced fonts and an interesting article by IA in search of the perfect writing font. So let me put this back on the screen. And here's the Wikipedia article. Thank you for the comment, Tilty. Here's the Wikipedia article, and you can kind of get an idea of what's going on right here, right? So monospaced, it's always going to be the exact same width, and people love this for code. It's super convenient in a lot of use cases. Not every, but it also just has like this cool, like sort of old school feel to it, like the typewriter feel to it. Apparently I'm very thirsty today. But you can see duospaced on the top there. And these glyphs on the right here, you know, some of these are, these are icons and stuff like that. So I guess this isn't a great example, but let's go ahead and look at Duospaced fonts right here. And this is IA. I'm not familiar with IA, but you can see proportional fonts are like what we're normally used to, where like the space around a font is proportional. So like an I can be this skinny, and then an M can be this wide, and then an E can be something kind of in between those, you know. Monospaced, you can see it on the screen there. See, maybe we can even zoom in a little more. Monospaced on the screen here, it looks cool, but it's not, you wouldn't want to read a book in monospaced. So basically, rather than proportional or monospaced, they've come up with duospaced typefaces. And this is why it completely wasn't something I even considered when I saw the name duospaced. I just assumed that it was like part of the name. I didn't think that it was actually part of the spacing. But you can see here where the W gets a little bit more room to breathe. The lowercase m is getting a little bit more room to breathe. So rather than just having one single like block that the typeface, I guess you would call it an M square, one single like M square that the letter is going to fit into, every letter fitting in the same one, there's two separate squares, and some get to fit into the wider one, some get to fit into this one. It's not necessarily like twice as wide though, so you're not going to have like a W taking twice as much space. So I don't know how much useful this necessarily is, because I guess you could go read the article on here and decide for yourself. I'm not sure how useful this is outside of a typeface to read from, because when you're coding, it's nice to have the fonts, like a monospaced font, like perfectly lined up so that the characters on top are always in line, like vertically with the letters below it. And if you have a duospaced font, that's not going to be the case. So this is IBM Plex Mono, and then this is IA Writer Duospace. So you can already see here this M, these M's are not lining up with the Z, whereas if you go up here, all of the letters are perfectly lined up. You know, all the same number of characters fit on each line. So I don't know, something cool, you know, maybe that's a seed for one of you to like go dig into a little more. I found it pretty cool. And it wasn't something that, it was something that was like lost on me the first time that came around. Let's get to the new releases because we got a bunch of them. And speaking of lost on me, here is Lost by 205TF. Great fonts. Don't know about the name of the foundry. I've never, there's too many foundries with numbers and I get them all confused. And I don't know, is this like, I don't know why they do it, but this is a great typeface. They have a lot of very nice typefaces. It's called Lost. I particularly, let's go ahead and look at some of these. You can see it's a variable font there, the way that it's able to squish and squeeze. Other than being able to do this with a variable font, what are the benefits? I guess a single font file is nice. Well, yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff with variable fonts. But this is, I think, like people so often focus on like the kinetic typography that you kind of forget the other use cases for it, because this seems to be, they can do so much and like it gets used for like silly stuff like this. But let's go ahead and scroll down. I brought up the email because they sent out this email and I think it does a little bit better job explaining what it is. So this is inspired by, well, let's go ahead and read some of it. It says, Lost is a typeface, Lost? Let me see if I can speak correctly here. Lost is a typeface that reflects the life choice that its designer, Federico, oh, I apologize, Federico, I can't roll my R's, made in early 2024 when he left his hometown of Bogota to settle in Berlin after several years navigating between America and Europe. This is where it gets cool. Discovering his new environment, Federico quickly developed an interest in urban signage and the role of typography in Berlin's public spaces. He was particularly struck by the metal plaques with embossed letters that are omnipresent throughout the city. So I think we've probably all traveled somewhere, or maybe in our home cities, where we've seen those plaques on like the side of a building or something, and they've got the embossed letters on them, where it's not like the pieces of letters are stuck on there. It's a solid chunk of metal that a machine has either stamped or pressed from behind. And you can see that. I'm not going to read everything else, but once you see that, once you understand that part of it, you can see it in the typefaces. So let's go ahead and look at these. So you can see how when you emboss metal, you don't get those perfect sharp things, especially in older fonts. You get kind of like these weird curves and bubbles around the edges and stuff, you know. And he's designed a typeface that perfectly encapsulate that. Let's make it a little bit bolder. This is the variable. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Word, black, white. I don't know that necessarily matters. I just want to make it bigger. Make it bigger. See how you don't get like the sharp corners in there? Sometimes this can look bad if someone alters a font that's not designed to do this. But Lost, it is designed in such a well done way that it just looks great in my subjective opinion. But you've got different versions of it. Compressed, obviously, if you're doing compressed, you're going to want this to be really big because it's going to be completely unreadable at real small sizes. But he does have like a normal version of it that you could kind of size down, and you could get this into some readable text. You know, it's passable. Again, I wouldn't want to read a book in it, but if you're just reading a caption, or you're reading, you know, like one of those little signs that we saw at the Cartier exhibit, I think that would be passable. But It comes with some open type features, and you can get a preview of it here. Let's go ahead and scroll down to the bottom so we're not wasting a ton of time. Comes with a bunch of open type features, and one of my favorites, we've seen this before in a few different typefaces, is the frames. I love that you can just turn these frames on and off, and this is, you can see here when I turn them off, this is how how Frederico is doing this. He's got parentheses, but then you can turn on this stylistic set and it creates the frames for it. And of course, anybody can create these frames in Illustrator or Designer. These aren't difficult to do, you know, but it's so convenient. It's like we talked about with Twitch the other day. It's so convenient to just be able to type it in and have it be there. And then like you resize the font and the frame resizes for you. Like the button can resize for you, the, you know, the sign, like whatever it is. Oh, it says I'm offline. I don't know if I'm back online right now. I don't think I am. Am I back on? It says that I'm live. I hope I'm live. It said that it went down. I think my internet cut out for a second. I'm gonna check because I don't stream enough to like understand. I don't stream enough to actually know. Let me check my own channel. This is so awkward. Am I live? Oh, I don't think I am. Oh wait, I am. Okay. I apologize if you're watching the replay of this. I don't know what happened. My internet turned off for a second, but luckily somewhere OBS and YouTube have figured out how to make this pop back on. We're only on the first typeface, so let's keep moving. Very cool typeface from 205 TF called Lost. Next is Babcock by Atipo. I never know if this is Atipo, Atypo. I'm gonna say Atipo. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's a cool typeface. It says inherited a retro futuristic genetic code. It's got a very distinct N, like capital N on it. That's the only thing I think that might turn away some people, but I think other people might be super excited by that very unique N. And I don't think that this necessarily has to be like a futuristic thing. It definitely has those vibes, but I think that this is a typeface that could just be used for a lot of situations. They don't have much leading in these, so I think that you're not getting a feel for like how it would like really exist in the world. But you can see right here, they've got it for some movie poster credits and stuff. Yeah, here's something a little more normal. Pub and kitchen. But you can see how it could be used. It looks very utilitarian. I don't know if it has lowercase. I don't see any lowercase listed here. So 4 styles, Latin condensed, Latin extended. Yeah, I don't think it looks like it's just all caps, but if that's what you need, that's what you need. Babcock by Atipo. Someone let me know if you know how to say it. Next up is Matrial by Optimo. I don't know. I think I'm a sucker for slab serif because, like I've said before, like slab serif typefaces were making sort of a resurgence when I was in design school. And so I just remember being obsessed with them, being obsessed with like Memphis and Rockwell. And I think this is a beautiful looking, I don't necessarily want to call it like a display slab serif, but it definitely could be used for, like, you see the curve, that giant exaggerated curve on the R, and like these exaggerated sort of pinching areas on the S there where the serifs, those big slab serifs come in. It's super unique. I mean, I haven't seen something like this before, at least. But you can see they've got these ligatures up here. You'd probably turn those off, these discretionary ligatures. I think you'd probably turn these off, but man, it looks cool. What I think is the most cool about this, though, are the uppercase ligatures. So you're getting a little bit of a preview of it here, but let's scroll down to the bottom. I think the bold looks amazing. Once again, you can see this is a variable by the way that they're able to do this. But let's go down to these uppercase ligatures, if I can find them. So they've, just like when we were looking at these other typefaces, there's a bunch of open type features to it, which is great when you're looking for fonts that, you know, or we'll look at like a free font later that's not going to have those features. And so you get what you pay for. But these uppercase ligatures are what I found most exciting. So you can see the two sides of it here, left and right. I really can't zoom in more than it is. But you can see how these letters are all separate, whereas these letters, some of them are connected together. And could you do that by just like kerning them tighter together? Yeah, you could. But this is going to look much better because you've got a professional type designer that typeset this, worked the spacing, worked these characters, worked the glyphs to like fit together in a very pleasing way. You can also switch from rounded dots here to square dots. That's always cool. I always like whenever you can add like the rounded dots to a square slab serif typeface, just because sometimes sometimes the square dots and tittles and stuff, it leaves it a little too cold and a little too sharp. It's nice to have the option here where, you know, you've got an entire set of characters with the blocked off ones, and you've got an entire set of characters with the dots, the rounded dots. I think that's great. But you can see there's a ton of open type features here. I would expect nothing less from Optimo. Great Foundry, optimo.ch. You can go check them out. And Matrial is this latest typeface. Just go back up to the top here. And yeah, I think it looks great. Ton of weights. There's even an italic version of it. So go check that out if you're interested in it. Two typefaces from Identity Letters here. And I'm bringing up both of them because they're on sale right now. One until August 8th, the other until July 31st. So let's start with that one first. Confer Sans, this one didn't release like this week, but it released recently, within the last few weeks. And it's got a very unique sort of like humanist feel to it. Let's go ahead and read what it says. I'm gonna try and be fast, but Confer Sans is Identity Letter's answer to the perfect sans serif. It has the digital perfection expected from a contemporary design while also looking at the human aspect of writing, celebrating the joy of the angular stroke ending, sophisticated enough for professional communication, informal enough to reach people who refuse a cold neo-grotesque. Typically, I hate the marketing language. You'll hear me say that quite often in the typography news. But I do think that they've accurately described this typeface, and I would commend them for that for sure. Because you can look at it, and it does look very professional, but it also has a super friendly feel to it. And the italic is like ridiculous in the best way, because you've kind of got this slant going on, but it's very bouncy, and it does exactly what you would want from an italic in the sense that it's going to draw emphasis to it. I don't know that's going to be for everybody though, because it is kind of just like they've slanted some parts of it, not slanted others. I think it's fun, but I know it's probably not for everybody. The other typeface from Identity Letters is, I don't know how to say this, Campuni. It's a font that smiles. Campuni is modeled on the handwritten letter forms of italics, but upright. Neat and clean, yet warm and charismatic. Like it even friendlier, try the smile. It gently curves straight stroke endings. And it has retalics. This is what they've added to it. I think this might be one that they've updated. It's not actually like a new release, but it's one that's been updated. You'll see this oftentimes, especially with typefaces on future fonts where they're kind of like in progress. But most type designers are never really done with their typeface, and they're always doing updates. So if you buy it directly from them, I would say in like 90% of times, most designers will reward you for investing in their typeface early by including updates to the typeface. Many foundries do that, not all. And I don't know if Identity Letters does or not, but they've updated this with like some new updates and new styles, and they've got the retalics. I'm probably pointing the wrong way. But instead of being italic, where it's, you know, leaning to the right as you read, it's leaning away from where you're reading. And I don't know, it's kind of fun. And then you can see here, let's see if we can find one that's the difference between the smiles. So the smile one, can we change it? The smile's just curving some of these. So here's like the regular one. You can see it's much more, everything's just much more straight, even being the retalic, the left-leaning one, you can see that. But then if we go up to the smiles, they have these little curves. You can see them on the edges of the D here and the edge of the W's. And this is what they're talking about, modeled on the handwritten forms of italics, but then they keep it upright. So the original one didn't have the left-leaning obliques, as they're calling them. Next up is Tightle by PSTL. I used to call it PSTL Pastel because I didn't realize that it was PS Type Lab. I don't know what the PS stands for, but this is a really cool typeface. And at first glance, I was not necessarily dismissive, but I was a little bit like, okay, we've seen that before. Like, it looks like, I don't know, ITC avant-garde. Like, it looks like those typefaces from the 70s that were real tightly they're really tightly tracked. And then, you know, they had the alternate A's and things like that. But this one goes even tighter than tight. This typeface is called Tightle. Tightl. So like title and tight combined. It's also not like brand new. This released a few months ago. But the reason I bring it up is because Print Mag, they released an article about it. This article is by Kim Tidwell. Quick read, 2-minute read, released 3 days ago. But it's all caps. Not really though. But this main version of Tightle is all caps. And it's super tight. So like at first glance, you look at it and it seems like those typefaces from like the days of Atari cartridges and stuff, right? But it actually gets even tighter than, what would be the best way to do this? I think we can get pretty big versions here. It gets even tighter. Nope. It gets even tighter than like just kerning them tight together. They're doing a pretty good job here with the ligatures. So they're showing you like, they've created all of these ligatures. I think there's like, I think the article says there was like thousands of characters. Let me check. It was a ridiculous number. 3,000 glyphs. So like a typical typeface, a small like Tightle typeface could probably get away with 300 glyphs if we're being honest. If you're only doing all caps, 3,000 glyphs. And the reason is because of all of these ligatures and stuff, where each letter has like a different version of how it can combine with other letters. Let's see. Here's a good example here. Can I zoom in more on this? Yeah, there we go. So beginning, middle, and end. So each letter has a version of it that's going to combine with other letters. And like this O, you can see maybe it's only squished on one side, maybe it's squished on both sides, maybe it's only squished on the other side. I just think that this is super, super cool. I don't know if they're the first to do it. This is the first time I've seen a typeface that's like this tight and this well designed. So yeah, like it definitely gives you those vibes, those like Atari, ITC avant-garde, 1970s vibes, but in an upgraded, updated sort of way. So I would love to spend a lot of time on here talking about this whole thing. I'll just go down real quick and you can see there are even more. Oh, am I on the article? No. I would love to spend all day on this. Go check it out. There's a ton of just like cool details that make this font work. And I don't know, it's one of those ones that it's kind of like a sleeper, but it's actually incredible. B.N. Hillman, this is one from Brandon Nickerson. I always mention Brandon Nickerson, and I always mention that you should go subscribe to his newsletter because he has free fonts all the time. And what did we mention before about free fonts? they're going to have limited character sets. They're not going to be like 100% perfect. You can see right here, you see what you get. You've got some Latin characters and stuff in there. Like I think you should be able to do pretty good with titles and things like that, but you're not going to write a book with B and Hillman. If you're familiar with his typefaces, this feels very much like Brandon Nickerson's style. But think back to, let's just scroll up to it. We can call out one of the first things we looked at. Think back to this rebrand that we looked at of Tripadvisor. We'll get there eventually. I wonder if Tightle has numeric ligatures. I can look for you real quick. Let's see. If we think back to this rebrand though, let me do two things at once here. Tightle, let's see. Does it have ligatures for numbers? Yeah, that would be pretty cool. It does in the same way that the other numbers do. See how you can see how like they squish together. So yeah, this like the 8 and 9 doesn't look great together, but I think that's one that you could fix in your app. But yeah, good call, Daryl. Yeah, the numbers do have ligatures in Tightle. I'm very impressed with this typeface. But what I was talking about with the Tripadvisor brand earlier, like what's the difference between this and like a free font that you're getting here? Obviously there's a huge difference in like the quality of the typefaces and the character set and things like that. But like Brandon Nickerson's, like the specimens that he puts out for his fonts, this was the first thing I thought of when I saw the Tripadvisor rebrand. Like this isn't, I don't know, it just, once again, like this isn't unique. And I think that's one of the downsides when you try to push one of these type-driven brands. At least use one color that we can identify with your brand. But B and Hillman, it looks nice. It looks like most of his typefaces, but it's free. So go grab it, subscribe to his newsletter. You get new fonts like every week almost, it feels like. Brandon Nickerson, always a good follow, good subscription. Harold's Fonts, this is a fun one. Harold, go to his About section somewhere on here and you can learn more about Harold. But Harold's Fonts creates a lot of cool fonts. He's got a bunch of free display fonts. So if you're into free typefaces, here's a bunch of free ones. They're all these crazy display typefaces, but they're really cool. And a lot of them have really cool stories behind them. So like if we go to Screwball is based on it's inspired by the hand letter titles of the 1972 movie What's Up, Doc? And so it's just like a typeface that encapsulates this specific movie. It's similar to what we were talking about with Nat Piper on the typefaces they were creating to like encapsulate people that they found important, to the movements and stuff like that. I think there's some really cool stuff here, but today we're looking at hardware stencil, and I'm typically not a fan of stencil typefaces. I understand that they have their place, they have, their purpose, but I just thought that this is like a funny and such like a practical reason to create this font. I'll read the description here. Let me zoom in if I can. Maybe you can read along with me. Kinda. Hardware stencil is a set of 3 fonts that captures the look of real stencils like you get at the hardware store. The style is stark functionality. The heavy font gives you just the letters, big, bold, and properly spaced and kerned. The regular font places each letter within its oak tag rectangle for a smart, mostly monospaced look. The fill font is meant to be used with the regular font, and you stick it inside of it. So you can see right there the black and red. So the fill font fills inside of that. It says, and of course I've expanded the limited character set of the original ready-made stencils. So basically like the look and feel of those traditional stencils that you would get at a hardware store, but expanded to have the character set that you could actually use in a typeface. Harold creates great stuff, just completely no nonsense. Like, I don't know. I like fonts with purpose. I like fonts with stories. And I think that Harold very often does both of those things at once. And all of the typefaces are very reasonably priced. You can see it's $20 for this typeface. So check out Harold's Fonts if you're ever in need of that stencil font, or just go pick up any one of these like dozens of free display typefaces that he's got here, because they're good quality and they're free, and they're not going to be super useful in most cases, but that one case where it is, it's going to be pretty clutch. This next one also not necessarily a new release, but if you are a member of I always mix up the names, David Johnathan Ross, if you're a member of his font club, he has like a font of the month club, then this would have been the font that you get for free this month. And I'm bringing up this one because I love these private press type fonts. So this is kind of inspired by that private press movement, like golden type and silver type. And this one was done for, let's see. Oh, it's at the very bottom. This was done for book designer, illustrator, engraver, and educator Barry Moser. He commissioned this book face for his Pennyroyal press, and that's what the font is called. It's called Pennyroyal, in 2017-2018. Sparkling, spacious, and bright, it was drawn in the tradition of typefaces created for British and American private presses throughout the early decade of the 20th century. And I feel like it's such a beautiful font, and I think you can go buy it for like $24 even if you don't join the font club. Yeah, so you can just buy it for $24 if you want. It's got bold, italic, and regular, like a Roman typeface. So like basically what these private presses would have had at the time. And that creates a little bit of, it makes your life a little more difficult, but it also creates a situation where you can work with the typeface similar to how they would have done it during the private press movement. I feel like I'm very drawn to these private press typefaces right now, if for no other reason than that they were part of the arts and crafts movement, which was basically like a pushback against industrialization. And I think we're going to see a sort of resurgence of this mindset with the AI stuff, because right now you can click a button, type a prompt, click a button, and get some kind of result, whether it's good or not. It's never going to measure up to like the handcrafted version of what a good designer can do or a good artist can do. And I think we're going to start to see that. Time will tell. Time will tell what the result of that is, because the private press, similar to like a handmade watch, a mechanical watch or something, they're way more expensive. So I think there are opportunities there for people that want to do that. But regardless, very nice looking font, Pennyroyal from David Johnathan Ross. He is always creating excellent typefaces. And speaking of excellent typefaces, this is Atlas of Type. Atlas of Type is not a foundry. It is essentially like a database. Let's see what he's calling it. Atlas of Type is a directory of contemporary independent type design. These used to go out a little more regularly. No shade. I love this. They used to go out like every week. You can see my news stories don't come out every day or every week, so